I got vaccinated week before. No, this week. Back into last week.
What did you get?
I got the golden standard.
Yes.
Pfizer.
Super silver.
But I'm not going to lie, lads.
Why super silver?
Because the high grade.
Golden copy, super silver.
Super silver Pfizer.
But I'm not going to lie. I was definitely getting it for the wrong reasons.
Why were you getting it?
Now,
Shubs
I need to remind everybody because I'm getting quite sick and tired of being called an anti-vaxxer, anti-whatever. I'm not. I never have been. I had every intention of getting the jab eventually. But I just wanted to, use my civil liberty of waiting. I'll be real, I was going to wait about a year until I did it. Got to about, what are we? Going to be about August, right? 8 months. So I got about 8 months of the way. Mm-hmm. But can't lie, man. When they said that the vaccine passports or the COVID passports were going to be the difference between me getting into the clubs that I never fucking go to, but in my mind knowing that was probably going to be extended to bars and to football matches and all this other stuff, that kind of accelerated my my visiting to Stratford's vaccination centre.
Yeah, it's not going to happen anyway. They're not going to implement vaccine passports.
That makes me feel.
Why do you think that?
That makes me feel really, really shit for the decision that I made. But the reason I'm bringing this up is because look, the conversations are becoming more and more frequent. The feelings of harshness between humans, anecdotally, are becoming way more tense than they should be. It's kind of like, Leave versus Remain during the whole Brexit debacle, which basically draws a line in the sand between what people think of others based on how they vote. I don't like the idea of governments coercing people into doing it. The UK has a situation, but the France situation, for example, is worse. Right, and I know why theirs is worse. Right, they had fewer people going to get vaccinated, so they had to hot man up and say you can't even go and get your baguettes if you ain't got your vaccine, buddy. Right, like, they had to hot them up. I get it, and it worked. They had like record applications for the vaccinations after Macron made those changes.
People like their baguettes,
but like for real. I mean, you ain't had a baguette until you've had a French one. Let's be real.
Oh yeah,
100%.
Pause.
Yeah, I walked into that.
How many French baguettes have you had?
You didn't pick up on the oh yeah. That's why I had to drop the pause. I was like, oh yeah? You're like, for sure. I was like, all right, then pause.
My naive
frequent consumer of French
my
baguettes.
naive mind just thought you hadn't been to France, you peasant.
You thought we were beyond these kind of juvenile jokes.
Yeah, no,
you were wrong.
Just thought you hadn't been to France.
No, you need to grow up.
He speaks fluent French.
Yeah,
I haven't been to France on principle.
I thought you hadn't been to France.
On principle. I went one time year 6. I said, I'm never going back.
All right, last time our family went to France, my granddad liberated it. All right, go say, you know what I mean?
What he said. But yeah, how do you guys feel about like the vaccination coercion that's going on? That's also.
What do you mean coercion?
What do you mean?
Let him finish his question.
I just think it's a shit premise, but can.
It's not a shit premise.
It's an awful premise.
Dominic Raab himself today admitted that the threat of COVID vaccinations is doing exactly what it's supposed to do, which is getting more people
There's definitely
vaccinated. So how can you say there's not coercion?
How do you feel you were coerced into it?
By thinking that my liberties would be taken away if I didn't.
But firstly, the government never came out and said that they're going to implement vaccine passports.
They did.
Bro.
They said they were studying it and there'd been newspaper leaks. No government minister came out and said...
You're now suddenly a defender of
government COVID policy. Making me defend the fucking Tories.
Not you lot.
Let him land. Let him land because I'm keen. I'm keen to hear this.
I don't buy the argument. This is the same line of thinking as people who say...
No
if you're sensitive, you're a conservative in what you can say. No one's forcing you to get any vaccine. If it so turns out,
there's a difference between forcing and coercion, right?
I mean, they're largely the same thing.
No, they're not.
They're largely the same
definitely
thing.
not.
Okay,
No,
fine.
no.
All right. Well, we could get into this, but it's a similar line of thought. So when people say I'm not allowed to say what I think because it will offend people these days,
tell us why you don't agree.
Because even if you believe that you're not able to get into a club or you're not able to go to a football stadium because you've not had a vaccine, even though the government haven't told you that, it's not a human right for you to have access to those.
It's not a human right for you to have social interaction with others.
Why does that have to be in a bar? Why does that have to be in a club? Why does that have to be in a football stadium?
Well, the idea is that most social places that have more than X number of people in its vicinity or in its location will require a COVID passport.
But they're not going to.
Well, you don't.
They're
know
not
that.
going to implement COVID
I don't know where the
passports.
certainties come from all of a sudden.
So basically,
the US is pilot plan to institute this.
So there's almost
Europe have rolled out.
Yeah, and
the
the US
COVID
is the most anti-big government that there is. So I don't know
Europe
where your
has rolled
certainties
out.
come from.
Europe has rolled out the COVID passport. So even if you don't feel it on a UK level as a UK citizen, like this is happening.
I'm just surprised at the certainty, the level of certainty.
But yeah, let's let Johnny land. Long John COVID.
That's just very good. I think they're basically functionally useless, and I think that we know that on an institutional level. What is the point of vaccine passports? Okay, so what does a vaccine passport prove? It proves that you've taken 2 jabs. Okay, now what does 2 jabs give you? 2 jabs gives you something like 70 to 80% immunity from the virus, but it gives you some reduced capacity to further spread the virus because you're less symptomatic. Having a COVID passport does not mean that you are 1, not ill, 2, not infectious, and 3, not contagious.
Right.
They're fucking pointless.
Bro.
They have
So this is the reason you think the government is not going to put it in because of rationality. When you're telling me the track and trace system took 4 billion to produce and whatever the number was.
It was like 4 billion a day, bro.
So realistically, I don't agree with like your certainty in a matter where like you typically like big government. And all of a sudden, you're saying that you think that the government won't act in a way
because it's so stupid.
Sure, but I don't think that's a reason enough for you to think so absolutely that this won't go down. This has a very high chance of happening, right?
No,
because 6 months ago, Boris Johnson's line was "This will never happen," and over the last 6 months, you have seen this significantly soften to the extent where he's not willing to repeat the line that there will be no COVID passports, right? So then for you to sit here and speak with such certainty that it won't go down, to me is, fugazi.
Okay, so the reason that I have such convictions is because I just don't think the politics make sense. Boris, I don't think, can pass COVID passports with a majority of Tory MPs. I think there's a significant enough rupture in the Conservative Party and the strength of feeling against COVID passports
how big his majority is
so significant that enough Tory MPs will defect, which means that basically they need the Lib Dems, who've already come out against it, and probably some Labour votes to get it across the line.
For it.
To get across the line.
Almost the whole Labour Party's for it, and the Conservative majority is fucking huge.
It'll be
he can withstand a rebellion.
So he can't withstand the size of rebellion that he's going to get from the Conservatives. And it's known that they'll need Labour votes to get it across the line. It will be the first political win in 2 years that Labour can have by the time we get to a vote on it. It'll be the first time that Labour has a chance to firstly to oppose, but to affect government policy. They're not going to pass this up.
So
There's
you're
no way
saying
that
they'll
Labour
spike it. You're saying Labour will spike it for a political win.
Yeah,
that's not a very inspiring view of politics that you have.
Absolutely not. Well, you accuse me of naivety. I'd say the same if you think it works any different.
No, I think firstly, there's a high chance that this happens. And secondly, although, I thought you were going to argue against Rich's point. I largely agree with a lot of what you said, right? But I just don't agree with the way you said it, right? So I thought you were gonna disagree with Rich saying, "Oh, it's not coercion; it's more of a marketing."
But he did disagree.
Blah,
it's
blah,
not coercion.
Blah. He didn't. Exactly. I'm saying I thought the way he was going to disagree with you.
I can come back to that point.
Talking about
Please.
I still don't
degrees,
think it's
right?
coercion.
Yeah. Saying that it's less of a coercion, more of a marketing campaign,
which
blah
it
blah
is.
blah. Right? I thought that was the kind of avenue maybe that he'd go down. Either way, it is very coercive, right? In the sense that you're looking at, it's very strategic, right? I've sat down, I've looked at a segment of the population, a certain part of the demographic, under 30s, whatever. I've seen what their pain points are, what they're looking for. You're looking to go club? Yeah, that's number 1. Yeah, okay. You're looking to go on holiday? Number 2, fine. Number
Festivals?
3, festivals and concerts, cool. Number 4, what else? You look at stand-up comedy? What else are you looking forward to? Cool. All of those things won't be available unless you take the jab, right? That's akin to a policeman stopping you
literally coercion.
and telling you, no, you don't have the right to remain silent when you do, right? Or some shit like this. Yeah, they're not sticking the needle into your arm, So you're not being forced,
Yeah.
but you're being coerced. That's the point that he was trying to get at, right? Where he's saying,
Yeah, that's spot on, right? And when you have employers also getting in on the act,
Yeah, they're coming out and saying it. That's different.
that's the added layer to this. And they are 100% emboldened by what the government is doing in these coercive tactics, which gives them, I guess, the freedom to run amok.
The other thing, to Johnny's point earlier about passing the Conservative Party, passing it and blah, blah, blah. Firstly, I think you overestimate the size of the rebellion.
I think you underestimate it.
And secondly, I think the government has already kind of done this by passing it on to private companies, right? So the government has said, no, we haven't instituted a national COVID policy or COVID passport policy, but individual pubs and clubs and whatever can mandate their own policies, right?
Sure, that's a policy reaction function because they won't pass it in Parliament.
So this and that's my point, right? So the point I was trying to get at is, if they find that there is an appetite to pass this, so it's like federally or mandated nationwide, we'll just carry on going the way it is, which is a de facto mandate, right? Where Abbey Addy Bar and Grill doesn't want to get closed down or fined or pinged or whatever because of COVID violations. So the easiest thing for them to do is say, don't have a jab, don't come in. Right, same as your employer.
Or what Piers Morgan said this week: those who refuse to be vaccinated with no medical reason not to should be refused NHS care if they then catch COVID. I'm hearing of anti-vaxxers using up ICU beds in London at vast expense to the taxpayer. Let them pay for their own stupidity and selfishness.
It's trolling, right?
This guy, he's literally.
Sorry,
but let's not take this. Let's
He's a
not
black
go
cab
left.
driver.
Yeah. Let's
He's a
not
black
go
cab
left
driver.
with him.
That's-
Yeah, he's just a waste man.
Yeah.
But it is.
Black cab drivers are not waste men.
I've taken 2 jabs, right? So I'm nowhere near an anti-vaxxer. I've double jabbed. I was early doors.
He wants his booster. He's ready.
Hey, I was double jabbed
Third round,
early
like
doors.
Israel.
Yeah. I'm ready for the booster, Charlie. Just
baby.
you got my text. You got my number. Just text me. So I'm not an anti-vaxxer, but people's liberties are being infringed upon. There's no doubt about that.
How?
In my mind.
Where?
Because of the coercion that's being used.
What liberty has been infringed upon?
Bro, if you mean that in a legal bill sense, you are right. Our liberties have not been infringed upon.
Right.
But again, I think there is a difference that I don't think
You've
you
been strongly
fully
encouraged.
recognised between
don't see-
forcing and coercion.
We talked about
forcing would be law, would be bill,
Yes.
right?
How have you been coerced?
Coercion are the tactics that make you do something without there
what's the
being
difference between
illegal.
If you don't get a jab, you lose your job.
Encouragement.
There's a
Come
coercion,
on.
mate.
Come
you
on, bro.
don't take a jab, lose your job.
Who said
Yeah,
that?
they'll never.
Fucking, we covered it on the podcast 3
Loads of
episodes. Who
people.
are the window cleaning people,
Yeah,
whatever, the
whoever
plumbers,
that guy
Pimlico
was.
plumbers.
Plumbers.
There's
That's
bad
not the
people.
government.
That's my point, mate. You're not listening to what we're saying.
You said the state is coercing people to take a jab.
So we said,
So who gives a
we
shit what Charlie
clarified
Mullins
that.
does? He's
We
a prick.
clarified that to you, right? So it's like, if you can't get it passed through Parliament because of this apparent backlash or whatever that
Right.
you've argued against,
Right.
then it's de facto, right? So you've just left it up to.
Because one
Let's do it
fucking
this way.
company said
Let's do it this way.
What do you mean one
Wait,
company?
wait.
Do a Google on your phone.
Tommy, let's do it this way, Johnny. Somebody says to you, I am absolutely petrified and I'm worried about the implications of this vaccine on my health. What's your one-line response to them? I've got a follow-up.
You don't want COVID.
I don't want COVID, but I'm very, very afraid. I'm a very precautious person. Don't want to inject something into me when I think I can find other ways of surviving and not catching COVID. I don't want to take the vaccine. What do you say in response?
Good luck.
The argument in response is
I got a follow-up.
utilitarianism.
I got a follow-up.
Greatest good for greatest number.
But if I don't take this vaccine, then I can't do any of the things that I like to do. What do you say?
I think you should take the vaccine anyway.
Yeah, so his response is suck it up. But the
As
original
someone who's been
response...
through COVID, you don't want this.
Yeah,
if you don't want,
okay,
if you
but
don't want to get a
that's
vaccine,
very
and you want to spread,
personal.
that's your
But
personal.
that's
view.
also a bit BS
Personal
because he
discussion.
said that the way COVID attacked you won't be the same as the way COVID attacked
Sure.
me or that someone else, right?
Sure.
So your personal opinion of how you felt during COVID isn't pertinent to how COVID's going to hit me.
We've asked you for a personal recommendation.
The answer you should have given Rich, right, is firstly, you say you do it for yourself. He's like, yeah, I'm under 25. I have a low chance of doing it, chance of getting it. So I don't really see why I should get the jab, blah, blah, blah. The second line of like retort is this utilitarian argument of you're doing it for yourself, but also for your community. This greater good for the greater number kind of response. Right?
Sure.
Which they can bat away because they're an individual and they have individual rights. Cool, right? But it's that final thing of, all right, well, then I basically can't leave the house if I don't have a jab. That's basically the kind of worst case scenario that we're kind of inching towards.
Yes, but you need to work on why people are skeptical to take it, right? You need to work on why people are skeptical, how they've been allowed to become skeptical through absorbing
But if it's not-
misinformation. And
but
you need
if
to
it's
work
not-
on, and you need to work on
But bro-
unwinding that
But
behavior,
can you not
right?
see the difference between those two things, right? So there's a difference between convincing someone of through marketing, etc., etc., of why their beliefs are wrong, right? And there's a different thing, which is what we're arguing, which is essentially coercing people to take jabs by taking away things they want to do. Can you not see how those two things are the same? I can tell my kid, listen, do your homework because you want to get good grades and then you want to get a good job and you want to go to university, blah, blah, blah. Or I can tell my kid, listen, do your homework or you're not going to watch TV or play ball or I'm not going to let you play football. Those two things, he's going to do his homework. But one, I've coerced him into doing it by taking away shit he likes. He wants to watch TV. My bad, bro. No TV till your thing's done. Or you explain to him, my guy, this homework is important because X, Y, Z, and tomorrow and school will be easier and this and that, blah, 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 right? Can you not see how those two things aren't the same?
It's a woefully false equivalence. The relationship between a parent and their child is not the same as that between a free citizen and the state.
But I think
you're not taking
I
the
think
bullshit
argument.
For
I
you
think
to
the
take that
example-
from it shows me that you weren't listening. So we might as
But
well
I was
move on.
listening.
It was more about forcing versus coercion. I think that was the point of Tommy's example.
Yeah, and I
That's
understand
calm.
it, and I understand the difference. I understand the difference. I just don't buy that if there is a rumor that you might need a passport, maybe a rumor that you might maybe need a passport to go to a club, that your civil liberties or your rights are being infringed to a significant extent that you can feel victimized and persecuted about it.
I think there's some
it's a bullshit argument
here because you've seen how the government does policy, right? Through leaks. You
Yeah.
soften up the
Yeah.
thing through leaks.
Yeah.
So I don't understand how you're sat here with this attitude about it, like not understanding that leaks is how you soften up the government.
And I understand, I
So
get
then what
that.
are you talking about then when you're saying no one said anything, no one's as if you're talking as if we're the deepest conspiracy theories.
Because every time there's
We're
a leak,
not.
there's a counter leak that comes that says they're not going to do it. And there's enough counter briefing that says it's not going to happen.
Regardless,
Well,
though,
I
there is
actually
enough briefing to make this not a fringe conversation.
Didn't actually think that this would be in question as to whether or not this was coercive. As I said at the start of this, Dominic Raab himself said that this is exactly what the tactic is. This is
Yeah, it's
exactly
bait.
what the
That's why it's
the tactic
interesting.
is.
Your opinion's so interesting on
He's as senior as it gets in the government, but it is what it is. Like, I mean, I still am on the side of make a decision and do not be forced. Get the vaccine for the right reasons.
But get the vaccine.
Yeah, however
But get
long.
it.
Well, look, I'm not going to go that far. Like,
I'll go that far. Get the vaccine.
Do your thing.
Yeah,
Do your thing. I'm not going to say I've got the vaccine and my two co-hosts have got the vaccine. Okay? Do your thing. Research it. Make your decision. Embrace each other no matter what the decision is. Not too much because they might have COVID in it.
But get it. Get it.
Yeah,
Like,
what
it makes
what
sense.
What I say is, and I agree with you to the extent that it's not our position, it's not our prerogative to be pro or anti-vax for anyone else. But what I will say, which is highly personal, is that you don't want COVID. You don't want
Long
this.
John COVID.
You don't want this.